coming up on this Hall of Fame edition of Wrestling Life.
And I'm so proud of what the women's division looks like. I mean, these are the most incredible athletes in almost any sport, to be honest. And to watch them go out there and perform and have sometimes 20 minutes or main eventing or, you know, like, it's just an incredible thing to watch. But I do honor the time period that we were in. We loved it. We were happy. We were excited. You know, we worked hard to pull wrestling into every aspect of any bra and panties or, you know, matches like that.
Welcome to the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame, celebrating the careers and accomplishments of legendary squared circle talents.
Hello and welcome everybody to a very special Wrestling Life, for I have the distinct pleasure of inducting one of WWE's most iconic female stars into the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame. Joining me is the first ever Diva Search contestant to hold WWE Gold. She's a former WWE Women's and 24/7 champion. She was Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Most Improved Wrestler of the Year in 2007, and she's somebody who is the walking embodiment of what it means to be a champ, both inside and outside the squared circle. Candice Michelle, welcome back to the show, and congratulations on being inducted into the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame.
Ben, this is such an honor, and I really appreciate the time and energy of you thinking about me and my career and everything I've gone through, and just having this time to highlight stuff. I'm really grateful for that. So thank you. This is awesome.
Oh, thank you. I mean, my pleasure. I mean, when I was kind of coming up with who would be the first ballot Hall of Famers for Wrestling Life, your name was right at the top because we had such a beautiful conversation last year. And for me, the Hall of Fame is, you know, this is wrestling life. This is much more about what you did in the wrestling ring. This is about recognizing people who I think deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think what you've done with everything in your life beyond wrestling and how you've helped other people and the journey you've been on is really special. So it's my honor. And today we're going to have some fun inducting you and sharing some memories.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So let's go right back to the beginning, Ben. So the beginning of your WWE journey, that is. So the first ever Divas search. I mean, how did that all happen for you, Candice? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, I'll never forget my agent calling me because I was in California doing modeling and acting. And so this was obviously a very different type of an audition. And he called me so nonchalantly, like I can just envision him. Like he lived by the beach, his feet are kicked up, you know, he's in a surfer outfit. And he's like, I'm not sure if you're going to be interested in this or not, but the winner will win $100,000. So he was just excited about his 10% of $100,000.
Sure.
He proceeded to tell me about this Diva Search contest, and you would get a 1-year contract with the WWE. And I'm sitting on the other side thinking, this is crazy, because I grew up watching wrestling and I never really knew you could be a wrestler. They were legit like superstars to me. You know, I never thought, oh, you can go to a wrestling school or train to be a wrestler. They were kind of heroes. And so for it to come full circle and to have a chance to audition for this, I was super excited and I was ready for it. So I'm like, heck yeah, sign me up.
So who did you love, like growing up watching wrestling?
Yeah.
Who were your heroes, those superstars?
My ultimate favorite was Hulk Hogan. Like without a shadow of a doubt, he was the best. I had a Hulk Hogan doll instead of a Barbie doll. And I remember my stepdad taking me to my first live event. And we sat on the entranceway. And I'll never forget the Bushwhackers came stomping down. And they stopped right by me. And they looked at me and I raised my little hand and like they high-fived me. And it's such a cool experience to look back on now. It was cool then, but now I'm like, wow, they tagged me into the wrestling business years before I even knew I was going to be in it.
And they didn't lick you as well, which is a probably good thing for a bushwhacker, yeah.
Totally. But Hulk Hogan was my ultimate favorite. I loved others like the Ultimate Warrior, the Jake the Snake Roberts, Miss Elizabeth. You know, it was just kind of that era where I was totally engulfed in it all.
But a real lack of, you know, women wrestlers in that era. It would kind of
Yeah.
pass. So you had Miss Elizabeth, you had Sherry. There were lots of valets and characters who
Yeah.
sometimes got physical, but there was a real lack of women's wrestling, wasn't there? So did you follow the product a bit more as it got to the late 90s and then we started to see Sable and Jacqueline and Chyna and that next movement of women in wrestling?
Yeah, I didn't really follow it straight through, as I got older and then I moved to California and was kind of starting my own career. My roommate was kind of into it once I got to California. So I remember seeing some of the stuff with Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he was really kind of huge, and The Rock in that era, but I didn't watch religiously then. But what really stuck out to me is maybe that's why I never thought I could be a wrestler, is because when I was watching, there wasn't female wrestlers.
Yeah.
And so you're just thinking, oh, this is kind of a man's sport, a male sport. And so kind of ironic how it just has evolved so incredibly so.
Well, I mean, as I said the last time we spoke, that's a very large part of that is down to the work that you guys did
Mm.
in the Divas generation, I guess, to pave the way for today. When you joined the Diva search, did you ever think, oh, this could lead to a contract to become a talent and become a worker in the ring?
For sure. I mean, I 100% thought I am made for this business. Like when I was auditioning, I had done thousands of auditions at this point. So I know the role of auditioning. You get some, you don't get some you kind of blow, some you're just not the right type for it. But this one, I was like, I am meant to be in here. And so when I didn't actually win, I was really hurt. I mean, it took like a month to recover. And then within a couple months, that's when they reached out and offered me the 3-year deal. So I was very excited to hear from them.
So what was your audition process then for the Diva search?
Yeah. I just remember I was in LA. We went and we auditioned, and then they flew all of the top, I think it was the top 20 maybe, to Chicago. I think it was Chicago. But they had auditioned in previously from California and Chicago and New York and Miami. So kind of really all those really top markets for females. And so they really brought in the top 20, and then they slowly started, doing some of those gigs on TV and filming, and then the elimination process was happening from there.
So I mean, you join this locker room where there's some really accomplished workers like Trish Stratus and Lita and Ivory and Molly Holly. So some workers that have been there for a long time, kind of building their skills. Did you and the other kind of women joining that Diva search feel like you were accepted into the locker room, or did it take a while to kind of feel that you were part of WWE?
Yeah, I think it definitely took a while. The women wrestlers that were established already, most of them had done some sort of wrestling school or wrestling training or kind of paid their dues that way. And so I think for some of them, they may have looked at us like, wow, you guys are just walking in here not paying any dues.
Yeah.
I feel like I paid my dues in Hollywood. It was just a different kind of paying my dues. And it was really a disadvantage for me. I was going in there not knowing how to take a bump, not knowing wrestling philosophy, literally just not knowing anything about the business. So when you get the privilege of going up to TV right away, there's also extra work that has to be done to understand everything about the business, from the politics to shaking people's hand to going up to superstars, to say hi when you arrive. Like, this is things that were never taught. You just kind of learn on the fly. So there's definitely a disadvantage, but it was an opportunity for us to learn and grow and to really step into that.
Did anyone kind of take you under their wing and kind of show you the ropes? Because I guess it's very easy in wrestling to make some real etiquette mistakes if you don't know what you don't know.
I mean, definitely Victoria. Torrie was obviously there before me. And so to have the two of them, they were super inviting, super knowledgeable, and knowledgeable in similar ways and different ways. And so they really just became like my sisters for life, even to this day, which is crazy to think like 20 years later, like they are my sisters. And they were just awesome, always wanting to have a match for the greater good, always wanting everybody to look good, never wanting to stab anybody in the back. And so I just gravitated to them right away, and they really did take me under their wing.
How often do you guys get to hang out these days?
Well, thankfully with like all these events happening and like WrestleCon is coming up and Mania Week, this is a great opportunity. I'll get to see both of them this week. So usually we're hanging out at appearances and trying to get in some special time, lunch or dinner or something when we're there. So a couple times a year at least.
That's really cool. Yeah, I saw you at
Yeah.
WrestleCon last year. I saw Victoria there last year. It's amazing to see everyone come together. It's like a little mini reunion, isn't it?
Totally. And we have so much fun. Like the memories that come up, the good old times. And to just nowadays be like, wow, like we're still friends. Like, we really got a lot more out of that business than just the work aspect of it. We really built a family of sisters we can count on and rely on, especially in hard times. So it's been a beautiful thing that we took from that business.
That's amazing because I think from the outside looking in, certainly that time, like the Divas matches had such a small amount of time on the show. If you had a 3 hour Raw, you'd probably be lucky if you had one or two 3 to 4 minute Divas matches on that whole run. So I've always wondered, I guess, whether there was like this fierce competitiveness between all of you to get your TV time, but it sounds like just a real sisterhood and lots of togetherness during that period.
It's definitely both. I mean, there is a fierceness to get your time and your opportunity. I think just some people can go about it differently. Some people try to get their opportunity, but they just never stab anybody else in the back, or they're not trying to put anybody, I call it blowing out somebody else's candles to make theirs glow brighter.
Mm.
And so that's why I really found this sisterhood with them. But what is really cool is there's this new article out with WrestleMania coming up this year. There's going to be the singles match that's non-title for the women. And apparently it's the first time in 20 years since me and Torrie were at WrestleMania 22 in the Playboy match.
Yeah.
And we revisited this match and we literally had 4 minutes and 4 minutes with entrances and a bed and gowns and
Mm.
all this stuff. And I was watching it because when you compare that to what the women are doing nowadays, you just think, wow, like we had to go through this so that they could be where they are at today. And so to be acknowledged for our 4 minutes, that's pretty awesome because 4 minutes can easily be forgotten in 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you said this to me when we spoke before, but I mean, all of that stuff, like the kind of bra and panties matches, and obviously, being a Playboy cover star. I mean, you're incredibly proud of that, aren't you? All of that period is a really big part of your story, Candice.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes when us women from that era want to look at this new era and be like, oh, we weren't doing as much. But we were doing as much with what we were given, and we were pushing for more. We were opening those doors so that nowadays these women can do this. And I'm so proud of what the women's division looks like. I mean, these are the most incredible athletes in almost any sport, to be honest. And to watch them go out there and perform and have sometimes 20 minutes or main eventing or, like it's just an incredible thing to watch. But I do honor the time period that we were in. We loved it. We were happy. We were excited. We worked hard to pull wrestling into every aspect of any bra and panties or, matches like that.
So when it comes to, obviously you get through, the Divas search doesn't go your way. That's very disappointing. You kind of work through your emotions on that. Who do you get a call from at WWE to say we want to offer you a contract?
Yeah, it was Johnny Laurinaitis.
Okay.
Yeah, he called and he was like, "Hey, we really and actually I think he brought me back for one show. Come back, we want to kind of see you again, something of that nature." Because I remember being backstage and they actually brought up a contract to me back then. And they're like, "We want to offer you a 3-year deal." And I just remember like it's like feeling like you're winning the lottery, like
Wow.
just so shocked that that's even happening. And so it was just an incredible opportunity and experience.
And did you, when Johnny kind of calls you and you get offered the gig, is it we want you to come in as a wrestler, or was it it's a talent contract and we'll see where we go from here?
Yeah, I think it was more of kind of a talent contract, you know. This was such a new era for them as well, and so they were just, you know, they were saying we're prettying up the business is kind of what I was told, but I never looked at it that way.
Mm.
I looked at it like I'm coming in to win the women's championship, and so it really didn't matter what they thought. It was what I was coming there to do, and so I think it depends on what attitude people are coming in with. You know, some
Yeah.
people want to come in and host, some people want to come in and sing, some people want to come in and wrestle. And I don't know what they thought for me, but I just knew I was going to wrestle.
Absolutely. And I know you said to me that Arn Anderson and Ricky Steamboat were both pretty key to you kind of
Yeah.
build in psychology. Um, who kind of helped you through kind of taking those first bumps and getting your ring ropes, I guess, in and building your knowledge in the ring?
Yeah, it really started out with the referees. You know, they do so much work there. And, you know, they put up the rings and establish everything beforehand. So as soon as that ring was set up, on the house shows, I would be there. And these are great athlete and wrestlers as well. I don't think a lot of people really realize that, you know, from what they see on TV. But they would give me so much time and energy of just learning the basics and, you know, just taking that time. And so that's where it really started for me. And then I found a independent circuit in California where I could drive about an hour and a half to a ring. And I had a couple guys there, some indie workers at the time, and they would just kind of start helping me out. So I was just trying to get in the reps whenever I could. Whoever was willing to get in there with me, I was getting in there.
Do you remember? Because when I've spoken to Mark Mera, he's recounted to me about taking his first bump and how all the air kind of came out of his body the first time he hit the canvas. Do you remember taking your first bump and what that was like?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, it's like almost like the life getting knocked out of you because wrestlers make it look so easy.
Yeah,
You know, they're professionals at it. And so you're thinking, oh, it can't hurt that bad. And I remember them showing me like, you know, somebody was on all fours and I'd kind of go over them. And I was like, once I hit, I was like, that's a terrible idea. And I was like, let's move that guy out of there. And they're like, okay, you know, you hit, you stand up, you hit, you stand up, like you go in this circle, hit, like just the repetition of it. And the first one, I was like, good Lord Almighty, how am I going to get up for the next one? But when everybody's watching you, you're like, okay, I just got to figure this out. And you quickly learn, like, tuck your neck, you know, get your arms out. You know, you kind of quickly learn all that stuff because if you don't, it hurts really bad.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's just repetition, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
keep going, and I guess over time it hurts less, does it?
Yeah, totally. You
Yeah.
totally build up a callus to it. You know, you kind of almost do not only not feel it, you actually enjoy it, which is kind of weird. It's just kind of like, you know, knowing that you've got the art of it, you know,
Mm.
when you land one so perfect, you know, when you think, gosh, that should hurt a lot, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Like there's something in that that is so rewarding when you finally get to that space.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I have heard you speak before about you know, the first time you kind of really grasped psychology was
Mm,
when you were working with Beth Phoenix. I mean, does
yeah.
Beth stand out as your favorite opponent from your career, or was there anyone else that you felt like you had really unrivaled chemistry with or that you loved to work with?
Beth was my ultimate favorite opponent because we both wanted to make a great match and we would do anything to show up for that, you know, showing up early, you know, talking with the agents, characters, and our dynamic just made a great storyline. You know, she was obviously, you know, the stronger glamazon professional wrestler where I was completely the underdog. And it brought out my strong suits. My strong suits is selling for other people, you know,
Mm.
making them look good. And when I make my opponent look good, it makes me look good.
Yeah.
And with her, you know, it's kind of almost easy to sell, you know, her giving me a big whack on the back because she's a lot bigger than me, you know.
Yeah.
So obviously, I know what to do when somebody does that. You know, when they're the same size, you're kind of like, ah, I don't know, you know. And so just the dynamics between the two of us, and what we wanted to do. You know, she was coming back from a broken jaw. And she kind of thought, her career was kind of over. Like she debuted, had this incredible debut, and then got smacked in the face and had a broken jaw, and she was sidelined. So for her coming back, like she was really motivated, and so was I. And so the dynamics and the timing of everything was really amazing.
I'm glad you said the word underdog, because I've kind of got that in my notes to ask you about, because I think that's a really key part of your career, actually. You really
Yeah.
played that underdog role, masterfully. And I think that's something that's then kind of come through in the work you've done afterwards about Be a Champ, this kind of overcome adversity and whatever cards you're dealt with in life to rise above as an underdog.
Yeah.
Is that something that you kind of intentionally brought into the wrestling business? Is that something that was always in the back of your mind, this idea of being an underdog in life?
I think it's just always been part of my personality of, if I want something, I'm going to get something. And one of the things I pride myself on is I can't tell you anything in my life that I've wanted that I have not gotten.
Mm.
And that's why I think I'm a great coach, because you only don't get what you want if you give up. That's the truth of it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a wrestler, a champion, a mother, a father, whatever you want to be. It's how far are you willing to go to get it, And so I've always kind of been the underdog with anything that I've wanted, and knowing that as long as I don't give up, I can achieve that. And so that's been some of my greatest success stories are when people think you can't do it. It just motivates me even more to say, okay, now I really want to do it.
Title Run Toys Series 1. Dangerous Danny Davis. Wrath. Juventud Guerrera. Ernest the Cat Miller. And Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Coming to the ring soon.
I mean, you had a beautiful conversation a few years back on Lillian Garcia's Chasing Glory show. Obviously, you and Lillian very close friends. I mean,
Yeah.
that stands out to me still as one of the most moving kind of podcasts I've ever listened to in terms of an episode, not just in wrestling, but in general. I mean, you really opened up in that. And for anyone who hasn't kind of heard more of your story, because I remember listening to this and being really drawn to this. I mean, you went through a lot of adversity. I mean, in terms of your upbringing, it's not my story to tell, but you lost your dad very young. You were also, a bit of a miracle baby, really. So can you tell me a bit about kind of, I guess, the early years of your life and how that shaped you into who you are today?
Yeah. So my dad, I think he was vaccine injured from the army, but he developed a tumor in his spine. And there's a really long name for it. I have it printed out, but when he developed this tumor in his spine, he became a quadriplegic. And so he was actually paralyzed from his neck down. And to just think my mom had to take care of him like this, and also was working 2 to 3 jobs just to provide. I had an older sister. My sister is 7 years older than I am. So when my dad was a quadriplegic, nothing from the neck down worked except for his special wand. And no pun intended. And so his dying wish was to be intimate with my mom one more time. And my mom was committed to him, till death do us part. And so she obliged in that. And she got pregnant. And it was a time in their lives, from what I've been told, is that, the doctors were advising her not to have me because my dad had this serious condition, and they didn't know at the time if this would be transferable to the baby. And so my mom was contemplating that, but my dad, I think, from what I heard, was slightly verbally abusive, not wanting to kill his baby. And he won that fight with my mom, and thankfully she had me. And I was born without any of that condition. It's something I have in the back of my mind to just, be cautious of and, any symptoms of that. But so far, I haven't had anything like that. I actually find it really ironic that I married a chiropractor.
Yeah. Yeah.
They always say you marry somebody that like represents your dad or looks like your dad and my husband is actually ironically so connected to my birth dad, who I didn't know because he passed when I was about 2 years old. And then I had a stepdad for several years of my life, and his name, ironically, is Ken, and they have the same smile. Like, I look at them like, this is so wild. I married both of my dads. And so it's been a beautiful story to kind of overcome the odds and really just that's how I started my life, and even though I was a young baby, because I'm so tapped in spiritually, like it's really kind of I was an underdog from the get-go,
Yeah.
and so it's just been a part of my personality since birth.
And how did that impact your relationship with your mum growing up? Because obviously you've lost your dad at a very young age.
Yeah, me and my mom had an incredible relationship. My grandparents did do a lot of the raising me because she worked 2 to 3 jobs. But she was so present. I never felt like I was lacking or without. I think one of the things that I realized, maybe this was from Lillian's podcast, is the only thing I lacked was more time with my mom, but the circumstances it wasn't that she wasn't present. It was that she was just doing her best to raise 2 young women. And the things that she did for us, it's incredible.
Mm.
She put us through Christian schools as a single mom. Like you think like, how is that possible? And when you are a mom, and I have 3 little girls now, you just respect that so much more. Gosh, you're making me cry, Ben.
Sorry. But it is. I mean, you must see so much for, as you say, you've got your 3 daughters now, and you know how busy life is, and you know how as parents we are pulled in a million and one directions, and you're doing what you're doing with your husband right by your side and being very involved. You can only imagine how hard that must have been for your mum to give you that upbringing on her own.
Totally. And so she was my best friend. She was my mom, but she was also my best friend. So when I lost her, it was hard. And it put me back into being that underdog, right? It's like, okay, I didn't really, my stepdad and her had divorced right before that. So it was like, there's something about having parents, whether you're close to them or not, and I was very close to my mom, is you always know that you can fall back on them.
Mm-hmm.
You just always know that. Like there's this unconditional love there that even if you're a little bit of an asshole or whatever you are in life, it's like mom and dad will try their best to show up for you, right?
Yeah.
And so when you lose that, you're kind of like floating in outer space, like, wow, I don't have that stability anymore. Even though my mom didn't have a lot, I know she would help me or find a way. Like she instilled that in me in my life. And at that moment, when I started to create, my champion programs, I learned we have to learn to fall forward.
Mm.
And a lot of times you might land right on your face, but at least you fell forward, right? And so the whole concept of falling back for me, it's not even in my mindset. There's no falling back. There's no plan B. There's no alternative. But with that, it has came with great success because I'm always willing to try. I'm always willing to fail. And I'm always just going to fall forward because falling back is not an option anymore.
It's amazing the kind of unconditional love of parents, because I don't think you get it until you are a parent yourself. I used to think like, how are my parents putting up with me with all of my kind of teenage mood swings and how I used to treat them? But then I have kids myself, and there's nothing that your kids can do or say that stops you loving them. You might dislike them at times. There might be moments when they're not your favorite people and you want a bit of space, but there's nothing that can stop you loving your kids. And
Yeah.
how old were you when your mum passed away?
Let's see, it's 22 years ago. I think I was right around maybe 23, 25. Gosh, I'd have to do the math. I'm not so good at keeping track of that. But really young to lose my mom and just kind of in that stages of just trying to make it on my own, you know? So it was really a devastating time for me. Although I believe to this day, like, she's gotten so much more close to me. Like, I do believe that winning that championship, like, her energy and her guidance from up above, like, just made me so much stronger than I think I would have been on my own without her being up there. And so just having that part of her with me, I think definitely helped me win that championship.
Well, let's talk about it then. So, Vengeance 2007, you become WWE Women's Champion for the first time, beating Melina. How validating was that for you? You know, you come in as a Diva Search contestant and you win WWE Gold. How validating was that? And what was it like to work with Melina in that match?
I mean, it's super validating. You know, Vince, who was running the company at the time, he doesn't give the title to anybody. And you know that you're showing up and showing out when he says you're going to take the title tonight. And just really came by surprise. You know, back then, you don't know a week before. You know the day of. Like, you walk into the arena and, like, by the way, today you're going to be the champ. Like, there's no preparation or preparing. It's just everything is really authentically how you feel in that moment. And I just remember, like, I knew I was working so hard for that, but when you get caught up in the working hard, you forget actually, oh, that's what I was working hard for, you
Yeah.
know? And so I said to myself, just take that moment. You know, when you're out there, just take a moment. It's going to go by so fast. And that was that special moment of just kind of looking up, probably looking to my mom, looking to God, and just knowing, like, when you work so hard for something, like, he shows up for you. And I used to, like, kind of leave God out of the messages a lot. Like, society kind of says, not to talk about it so much. But in my coaching now and my emotional alignment sessions, like, there is no way I can leave him out of it.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that I have gone through in my life and I've gotten through and I've succeeded at, like, when you can't make it up, like, it's been so hard, you're like, wow, he has got me. He really has got me. And he shows up for me so much. It's been so powerful. I can't believe you're making me cry like this today, Ben.
I'm sorry. But this is the highs and lows of life, isn't it? This is, when you look back on some of the incredible moments of life, it also brings with it a lot of tears. And
Yeah.
I think, something like that was such a like climbing to the pinnacle of a mountaintop that you've been working so hard for. I mean,
Yeah.
is there a moment when you kind of come home, you take that belt back to your hotel room at the end of the night and you're just like, wow, I'm a WWE champion. Does it sink in?
It does sink in until you go to the airport in the morning and then you have to carry around this like 10-pound thing in your luggage.
Yeah.
And then they open up your luggage and they're like, oh, and you're like, oh yeah, I did that yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I think it really sunk in for me that next morning, when like you're carrying it through the airport and they open it up and you're like, oh, this is mine. Okay, awesome.
I mean, it's a as you say, it's an achievement that not many get and so many wish for, and
Yeah.
it can never be taken away. Once you become a WWE champion, you're always a WWE champion. I mean, you end up becoming a two-time WWE champion because years later you become a 24/7 champion, which is very unexpected. I mean, that title isn't around anymore, but I know for you that carries a real special place, doesn't it, in your heart, being a 24/7 champion?
Yeah, I just really believe that when you're showing up behind the scenes, when you're showing up in your own life, that there's going to be the moment and the time where God will recognize that. And so, I wasn't doing anything relevant with wrestling at the time when they called me back for that show. And so for them to give me that title, I really felt like it was God given. It's like he's been seeing the work I'm doing behind the scenes on how I'm showing up in life, how I'm showing up for other people and making a difference. And so that title was really meaningful for me. I only had it for, 10, 20 seconds. But I had it. And like you said, once you have it, nobody can take that away from you. And I don't allow people to take that away from me. I don't give my power away. They're like, "Oh, you were a champion like 20 years ago." Oh, no, girl. No, no, I still am.
Yeah.
It's something you can't take away from the core of really who I am. And so the 24/7 title was like, yeah, that's like really how I live my life, like trying to be a better person 24/7.
And taking advantage of any opportunity at any moment, making the most of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always that saying, it's like be ready for the opportunity. And so I was just ready for the opportunity. And so I love that.
Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the show that happened around about the same time. The WWE had its first ever all-female show, Evolution, and it
Mhm.
invited a lot of women's champions back for that night.
Yeah.
But you weren't part of that star-studded lineup. Do you know why that was? Did anyone ever?
I don't know why. When you're not invited to something that's really big like that, of course, you kind of try to make up stories in your mind. But the biggest thing that I always land on is it's just not meant for me. I'm not meant to be there. It's not the right timing. Because if I make up all the other stories, then I'm just going to feel bad or hurt or, I wasn't good enough. And I don't believe in those kind of paradigms. They all come up for everybody, that's human. But as soon as it comes up, I'm like, God has something bigger for me or something better for me. So if that door didn't open, I just wasn't meant to go in it. But there was no reason that was said, on why I wasn't there. I know there's a lot of incredible women nowadays, and it just wasn't my time.
Well, I hope there'll be another one. I thought that show was
Yeah.
fantastic, and
Yeah.
I know it kind of paved the way. It was transitional because a year later you'd have the women headline in WrestleMania, and now
Mhm.
you have a female equivalent of every big male match. But I'd still love
Yeah.
to see an all-female show again at some point. I think it'd be incredible. And fingers
Totally.
crossed, next time we'll be a part of it.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So I want to ask. I mean, there's three letters which are synonymous with WWE, which is TLC.
Mm.
But there's another TLC within the world of wrestling, and that is the trio of Torrie, Lillian, and Candice. And you've obviously mentioned Torrie Wilson already, who's been doing
Yeah.
incredible things in her post-wrestling career. And then
Mhm.
there's, my dear friend Lillian Garcia, who I've just had the joy of getting to know so
Yeah.
well over the last couple of years. Wasn't there a reality show planned for you three at some point? Am I right in saying that?
Well, we were doing a podcast show. It started off where we were interviewing people, and that's kind of where TLC was born. And we were having a great time with that podcast. And I think there was thoughts of it going to be a bigger show, but it just never kind of went anywhere, kind of fizzled out.
Oh, that would have been
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been incredible to see Lillian back in WWE this year.
Oh my gosh,
She's never missed a step.
she's so amazing. I mean, like, she looks better and more beautiful than ever, which is hard when you already are amazing. And her voice, I mean, it is just mind-blowing. But I know her a lot behind the scenes. And so just to know, like, the person that she's grown into and the connection that me and her have as just really deep friends. Like, it is such a beautiful thing to watch her shine and how she goes there. She's gone through so many transitions of going back, and now, there's a new announcer. And watching her do that with grace and love and compassion. It's really a testament to her heart and her character and all the work that she's done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, she's
I
legendary.
she is, and as I said it before, I said it to her before, and she said no, that will never happen. But if she's not a guaranteed WWE Hall of Famer in the future, I
Totally.
don't know who is.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. I think she was Hall of Fame status before she went back, but I'm like, that sealed the deal. For you to come back years later and just be even more incredible, I'm like, yes, Hall of Fame for sure for her.
And you can see as well by all the current WWE stars, like all having selfies of her. Like you can
Yeah.
tell that there's a lot of fat people, there's a lot of guys in the ring today who were a fan of her 25 years ago, growing
Yeah.
up, who are now like, wow, Lillian Garcia's announcing my matches.
Yeah, totally. And just to see her, the way she is with the superstars and with the fans, like, she posts a lot of this. It's shows how much she just really loves it. She
Mm.
loves to put people over, make them look great. She wants to be the best she can be. She wants to acknowledge the fans because we know that without them, we're nothing.
Mm.
And the way she takes the time and energy to do that, it really is a testament of her character and how she shows up for herself and other people.
And that's what I noticed as well when I was kind of at WrestleCon last year and had a chat to you, and I was seeing how you were interacting with the fans. I could tell that it was just bringing you huge joy to be
Yeah,
sharing those memories of fans again. Is it
totally.
a bit like you're turning back the clock when people are kind of sharing memories of what they saw you do in the mid noughties?
Yes, they really turn back the clock. That's for sure. When they come up and they're like, "You are my childhood crush," and I'm looking at them thinking, "Are we the same age?" And I'm like, "Oh wow, okay."
Yeah, yeah,
I am a lot older than what I think I am.
yeah. But
But
I mean, you and Tori and Lillian haven't aged. I don't know what you're doing, but you haven't aged in 20 years. You're doing something
I
right.
don't feel like I've aged that much, but when people say that, I'm like, wow, that was really a long time ago. And so it's just beautiful, I think, to think like, when we're in the business, we don't ever think, oh, I hope in 20 years people remember this.
Mm.
Or I hope in 20 years people remember me or appreciate me or what I did. Like it's not part of the conversation you have when you're in the business. And so to be at this point where I'm out of the business for that long and I'm still booked every year on signings and appearances and people come to see me, I'm so grateful. And the memories that they bring up and the stories that we share and how it changed or impact their life. Because I was kind of a kid then, I was trying to make change and impact in my life. And now I've elevated to a stage where I'm trying to do that for other people. But to see that they just kind of saw the heart and soul of me back then, it's a really beautiful gift that they share with me. And it brings me so much joy.
I guess also you're so busy, aren't you? When you're in the machine of WWE, you are literally jumping town to town to town. You
Yeah.
probably don't have any chance to really savor a moment when you're doing it.
No, we're sleeping an hour to 3 hours a night. We're traveling 300 miles a night and then flying home. And it was so different back then. Nowadays, they don't have the house show. So I think maybe the travel schedule might be a little bit kinder to them. Um, but we just loved the grind back then. It was who we were and what we did. And that's what that era was about. It was really, putting in all the work.
I'm not sure if it is easier for them because they may have got rid of the house shows, but they seem to have really doubled down on their international touring.
Yeah.
So they it seems like they are literally everywhere, so much more global than they were 20 years ago now.
Yeah, well, and having many more shows, and more opportunities for the superstars to be doing things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but we love it. We're kind of sad when we're not booked more. When you're in that business, it's like when you're booked, you're doing something good.
Was it a shock to the system when obviously injury forced you out of the
Yeah.
business? And then you've spoken to me when we did a podcast before together about how your husband called you up and said, "Let's make a baby."
Yeah.
Um, was it a shock to the system to go back to civilian life, I guess, after 5 years of walking out in front of
Yeah.
20,000 people screaming your name?
For me, that wasn't really that big of a shock, to be honest. I took a year to really kind of enjoy life, enjoy time with my husband, travel. So that was beautiful. And then when you go into having babies, which that's a harder schedule than wrestling. And so I feel like I got a little reprieve for a little while. And then going into the baby mode, I was like, wow, wrestling just prepared me for an even harder schedule of having children.
Yeah.
And that schedule never ends. I was like, when does that end? Do I get a break ever? No. So I think it was great preparation and what was to come. For me, the harder transition was recently, about a year ago, of coming out of being a stay-at-home mom back into the work field. Because when you leave a job for children, you're leaving a job. But to leave your children for a job, that wreaked emotional havoc over me, of feeling like I'm not a good mom or I'm not there enough. And so I had to just really kind of focus on that. I need to do what's best for me so that I can be the best version of myself for them, and really teaching them that. And so that was a really hard transition. I still struggle sometimes, like if there's a holiday and I'm working now with clients and they're at home, I'm like, wait, they're so excited to be on holiday and I'm working. I'm like, wait, where should I go? What should I do? So that transition has been the hardest for me in my life.
But what's amazing is, I mean, it's funny because we're recording this right now. My kids are outside in the sunshine, have been told very clearly, don't come in for an hour because I need to stay silent. But they also know that what I do for a living now is something that brings me great joy, and it's something that I've loved since I was a child. And I've now managed to make work and employment out of the thing I loved loved as a child. And I think there's beautiful parallels there with what you're doing, because you're clearly living and working with real purpose, and you're role modeling to your girls, aren't you, actually, that you can make a living out of doing something that brings you great joy. I mean, for any of my audience who missed our first conversation and hasn't followed your life since you stepped away from WWE, explain what you are doing now in your life at House of Healing.
Yeah, so I'm an emotional alignment specialist. It's something that I really created after I went through my traumas of my own panic attacks that plagued me for a couple of years. I tried everything to heal from that, medicines, supplements, chiropractic, I mean, you name it. And what really guided me out was spiritual guidance. And it was really getting to the root cause of everything in my subconscious mind that was causing me anxiety, because I didn't feel anxiety in my conscious mind. It was all in my subconscious mind. So diving into that, it made me very connected. When you have a panic attack, a real panic attack, it looks like I pass out, but I'm actually not passed out. I'm actually shoved in my subconscious mind. So I can't see. I usually can't talk unless I'm asked a question.
Wow.
And I'm on the ground and I'm having heart palpitations. Slightly feels like what I would imagine a heart attack would feel like. I don't know what that feels like, but it's a very scary place. But I know where I'm at. So it's not like I forget what happened. I am fully aware of everything that's happening, which is really scary. However, in the subconscious mind, that's really your higher consciousness, and it's your connection to your intuition and your connection to God. And so when I got in there repeatedly, day after day after day, it started off super scary, right? And then it got to a point I said to my husband one day, I said, God wants you to ask me a question. And he was like, what? Like, that's the weirdest thing to say. I'm like, I don't know. Ask God a question. And he asked me a question, and I just words just came spewing out of my mouth. And in that moment, I realized that's my connection to God. And that's my connection to my intuition or my higher self, which is all the same in my opinion.
I'm Mark Merrill, former WWE Intercontinental Wrestling Champion and 3-time WCW World Television Champion. I am thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Bad to Good. The inspiring story of a wrestling wild man chronicles the highs and lows of my life, both in and out of the wrestling ring. It's a powerful narrative of overcoming adversity and the importance of perseverance, no matter how tough the journey gets. Co-authored with my good friend and award-winning journalist, Ben Veal, this is a story I've long wanted to share, and I truly hope it inspires you. I hold nothing back in this book, revealing the untold truths of my extraordinary life from my modest beginnings and my first boxing match to the struggles with addiction that almost consumed me and my evolution into the charismatic Johnny B. Bad. This book offers an insider's perspective on the world of professional wrestling and my journey as a sports entertainer. You'll read about my pivotal negotiations with Vince McMahon that led to the first ever guaranteed contract in the WWF and how that decision marked me within the locker room. I discuss the impact of my relationship with my then wife, Rena, known to fans as Sable, on my career. I also confront the darkest moments of my life, how I hit rock bottom and how that experience sparked my rebirth, leading me to become America's leading motivational school speaker, inspiring young people and transforming lives. Featuring forwards by my good friends Diamond Dallas Page and Lex Luger, along with contributions from Mick Foley, Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, and others who shared this wild journey with me. Bad to Good is a story you don't want to miss. Head to Amazon.com or WrestlingLife.online now to pick up your copy.
And so people are like, well, what are you, psychic? Or, I'm like, no, I'm just connected. And I explain it like this. The first voice we hear in our head is our intuition or our God voice. And everything we hear after that talks us out of it. So for example, if there's a voice that's like, you should go to the gym today. That's your higher self, God voice. And then it's like, no, it's raining outside. No, you only be there for 30 minutes. No, the drive's too far. You see, everything will talk you out of your greater good. And so what I do is I reconnect you to that higher voice, and realign you with your true purpose. And we get to the root cause of releasing everything that doesn't serve you. So people can really get stuck on all these voices that talk us out of it. And when emotions are so high, we can't hear our God voice. Right? Because we are all up in our business. And so I've been blessed with the gift of I can hear it for you. And so I will ask you permission if I can hear that for you, and I'll help guide you to find that. And when I guide you to find that in your subconscious mind and we release those emotions at the root cause, the healings that happen in my room here are just incredible. They're miracles that are happening on a daily basis in here, where people are like, I've been to psychiatrists and psychologists and nobody has ever gotten to the root cause of this in one session. And so it's been really a blessing of taking, I call it trauma triggered greatness. And so when you go through a trauma, it gets triggered in your life, right? But I work with people on having that trauma trigger your greatness. And when people can shift that mindset, and so every time that trauma comes up, they think of, oh, this is for my greater good. Now that trauma is actually their biggest gift instead of a trauma. And it's a slight mind shift, but I can help people uncover that. And when they do, their whole life opens up. This weight, this heavy weight just comes off of their shoulders, and they have forgiveness and gratitude and grace, and can live their life again. So it's a really beautiful process that I've been able to create.
Yeah, it's a beautiful process, and it's a really powerful skill to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's not an easy subject to talk about, but I did forewarn you before we started recording, because I wanted to ask you about this. You mentioned trauma earlier, and I want to ask you about the late Ashley Mazzaro, because I know that you and Ashley were very close.
Mm-hmm.
What impact did her passing at such a young age have on you, and how did that influence your life?
Yeah. When Ashley passed, obviously she was a great talent, right? And you never really expect somebody this close to you to have to go through something like that. And I just remember in that moment, and I think I said this on some kind of, we put together, the Squared Circle sisters put together a little tribute to her. And I was already diving into this work, but I wasn't fully doing this work. And I thought to myself, wow, I have been in that space that she must have been in, where it's like, do I stay here on this planet or do I not? And I thought to myself, how did I get out of that space, but she wasn't able to? And then I started to unpack that and think, well, if I can get out of that space, that means there's something I know that I can help other people get out of that space. And when you hear of this tragedy of your friend passing away at the circumstances that she did, it made me want to promise that I would really start helping people because I know that I'm capable of it. And how can I see that the tiny bit of hope in something that's so dark, and why are some people, and she's not the only one. I was close with Lance Cade and I was close with Umaga. And so that was like, when she passed, I was like, wow, like there's got to be something to help people. And I'm one of those people. And so to be able to start to really unfold this, and it was really crazy is when we opened this practice, my husband had, almost maybe 100 autographs from WWE superstars, from him adjusting them at his previous practice or behind the scenes at wrestling. And in the move here, we lost all of them.
Oh,
And after we were open for maybe 4 or 5 months, he found two, Ashley's and Umaga's.
oh,
I mean, honestly, I was like, okay, you guys see me. And to have that those are one of those signs and wonders from God, right? I can't say, oh, out of all 100 autographs, I'm going to pull out two and they're just going to randomly show up.
yeah.
And so when those showed up, it's just like those signs of like, okay, you're actually doing it now. Like I honor that I see you. And so just feeling their support from above, it was just a turning point for me of like, this has to happen. And I didn't know what that looked like, right?
Yeah.
And so it took me a few years, for that to unfold. But I think that she would be really proud to know that I'm helping people nowadays really recover from being in places like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful way to honor her memory.
Yeah,
I didn't
totally.
I didn't realize that your husband had been a chiropractor for lots of the WWE. I have seen a hilarious video of him adjusting the Undertaker's spine.
Yeah. Yeah, he has adjusted most of them. And so it's been a great opportunity for us. And then I think just like maybe a few months ago, more of those photos randomly showcased. And so we've recovered maybe about 30 or 40 of them.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
amazing.
been awesome how it kind of laid itself out for us on this journey.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, look, I mean, you had it at the start. Your rather beautiful Wrestling Life Hall of Fame award plaque. It's not your only lovely plaque that I'm sure you've got in your. There it is. Um, you in 2007, I mentioned in the intro, you were named Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Wrestler of the Year, um, over and above MVP, Jay Lethal, and some guy called Cody Rhodes, who's long been forgotten about. Um, you know, I mean, that's huge. And obviously, you grew up as a wrestling fan, so you know
Yeah.
PWI and you know what it means. Where
Yeah.
were you when you first heard the news, and how much did that mean to you?
I can't remember where I was, but I remember somebody actually brought me the magazine because I was on the cover of it. And that's when I really realized like the impact of what was happening. And I was like, wow, like that is a huge honor. And I actually didn't know that it was over those people. So you've just kind of shared that with me.
Yeah, you beat Cody. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. But I remember just coming up with Cody Rhodes, and I remember him struggling so much at that time to find his own identity, right? Like to
Mm.
get out of like what he was known for in the family identity and trying to figure that out and just kind of evolve into that. And so when he won that title last year at WrestleMania, he probably doesn't even know this, but I was just so proud of him, and so elated because when you see somebody struggling and had the tenacity for so many years, like decades, to really discover who he is and grow into the man he is and the champion he is, it was really cool to watch that. Really cool.
It was. No, I felt so honored. I mean, that was my first live WrestleMania, and
Mm,
I felt really emotional as well because that whole storyline really struck a chord with me because I'd lost
yeah,
my dad the previous year, and um, I really felt that same acute loss that he was feeling. I know we're talking
yeah,
wrestling storylines, but sometimes those
yeah.
wrestling storylines hit very hard,
Oh,
and
100%.
that kind of bittersweet feeling. I felt the same when my first book was published, and all my dad ever wanted to do was write a book, and
Mm,
it's the same parallel between
yeah.
Cody and Dusty. It's just
Mhm.
that I wish you were here to see this, and I'm sure very similar to how you felt capturing that women's championship. I wish you were here to see this moment, but I know you're here with
Yeah.
me regardless. Yeah.
Totally. Well, and that's really honestly why wrestling is so popular, in my opinion, is it's can you put yourself in their shoes? And there's so many different storylines, right? It's like, but you are able to put yourself into Cody's shoes and watch him rise above, everything, the loss, the hurt, the pain, the years of training, the breakthroughs he had to make. And it's like when you see people do it on a grand stage, it automatically says, hey, I can do this in my life too.
Yeah.
I can see that my dad is proud of me too. I can honor that. And so it's one of the most beautiful things about wrestling is, being able to put yourself in those storylines,
Mm.
and that's when, wrestling's doing a really good job because you're connected, right? You're not just watching a show anymore. You're a part of the show.
Yeah.
And those are what make those moments unforgettable. That he was able to connect to your heart and your journey in life and your story with your father and you doing this thing that's amazing and writing a book that he always wanted to. And it's like instantly yeah, your dad is proud of you too. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I wrote in the dedications of the book that, I know you're walking this walk with me to my dad. Like,
Yeah.
they're still there. I mean, and to be full circle, the emotion that you had on your face when you became women's champion at Vengeance, that was a very, very real moment. The fans recognize that moment. They still remember that moment because it does transcend. Wrestling has always blurred the lines between
Yeah.
fiction and reality. And for everyone who's ever said to me, "Oh, I don't know why you watch wrestling, it's fake." It's like there's nothing
Yeah.
fake about the emotion that wrestling elicits.
Yeah.
When done well, it's a beautiful, beautiful art form. You gave a TED talk a few years ago called "The Authenticity of Fake,"
Mhm.
and that quickly went viral. And that looked very much at these realities of pro wrestling. I mean,
Yeah.
what led you to giving a TED talk and becoming a motivational speaker?
Um, it's actually a great story. I was coming out of being a stay-at-home mom and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it's funny as my youngest daughter went to preschool and I remember coming to the car and I sat in the car and I was like, well, who am I now? Like my kids are grown up and she's like 3 in preschool, right? But there's something about when they're going to school
Yeah,
that now it made me feel like, well, now I'm really a cook and a house cleaner and an Uber mom. I'm really like the whole mom thing just didn't feel so mom-like anymore. And I went to this bulletproof convention, which is really big right now with Dave Asprey. I love the bulletproof coffee because it really kind of kicked my health journey into high gear. And so I wanted to go learn more about biohacking back then. And I go to this thing, and there's this guy, this ex-pro football player, and he's giving this speech and he's selling something. I don't even know what it is, but I was like, I want whatever he's got. And then they do like a little breakout session, and I go in there, I'm like, yep, I want what he's selling. And I literally ended up being in this 2-year mastermind And at the end, I was like, oh, you're teaching me to be a motivational speaker. It was the craziest thing. I am not a floozy by any means. Like, I know what I pay for my money. But at this stage in my life, I was really just trusting my gut and my intuition. And he was training me on how to be a motivational speaker. And through that, I got the TEDx talk. And so that was my first really big motivational talk where I could really kind of start bridging the gap between who I was and who I was becoming. And so that's why I wanted to use professional wrestling with that.
And how's that all paved the way to you now doing stand-up comedy as well?
Yeah. I figured that, well, I learned the formula to writing speeches that, stand-up comedy is ironically another speech. And my stand-up is all through personal story, and so I learned how to share personal stories about myself. I do that all the time with my clients currently. When I can take the problem away from you and put it on me, it's like you instantly understand. And more importantly, when you can laugh at my problem, then you can start to laugh at your own.
Yeah.
And so I really started to bring laughter into the trauma. So every time I have a session, my goal is to always laugh because it's almost undeniable that we're going to cry in here during the session because people are coming in here to release really heavy things. And so if we could start laughing at it, it just starts taking the pressure off of it. And so I do my stand-up comedy and I just make fun of all the traumas that I've ever been through in my life. Professional wrestling, right? It's like then people can start to laugh at their traumas. It's the connection between that.
Yeah, I mean, and as I say, wrestling is your own personality dialed up to 100, isn't it? So I guess it's just the same thing.
Really.
I know you were ringside at a WWE show recently, and you were there with your close friend and now WWE Hall of Famer Michelle McCool. How closely do you follow the wrestling business yourself these days?
I don't follow very close. I've always had this kind of mentality of when you're the superstar, you're not a fan.
Yeah.
And I still reside in that space. It's not that I don't, catch up on certain things or watch certain things, but I don't follow on a consistent basis because I'm consistently working on being the champion in my life.
Yeah.
But me and Michelle have been really close because we live near each other. And I think I shared this when I first came to Austin. I was just suffering from these new traumas of panic attacks that I had no idea what they were. And she's the one that actually connected me with the spiritual guidance lady, which helped me heal. And she just showed up like, anything I needed, she just showed up. And it's really a testament to who she really is, and I just think she's such an incredible person. And I'm actually excited to go watch her this year be inducted into the Hall of Fame because she just really, truly deserves it. She's also one of those people that does so much behind the scenes that I think a lot of people don't see. And that's what I've been blessed with being able to see. So she's done a lot in the wrestling business and she deserves it from that standpoint. But once again, I feel like when you're doing the work behind the scenes constantly for yourself, for your family, for others, that's when God shows up and he's just like, this is your time. This is your reward to shine. It's not just about wrestling, in my opinion, for her. It's about who she really is. And she really deserves that spot. So I'm excited to celebrate her.
Well, that's her Hall of Fame moment, but this is yours. And I would echo everything you just said about you. I think you really deserve this. It's my honor to celebrate this with you today. There it is.
Yeah. This is so incredible. I feel so blessed to have this. Thank you, Ben.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I guess, look, the last thing to say, you kind of talk about kind of paying it forward to people. Don't fall back, fall forwards, in your own words. I mean, for anyone who's listening today, I know there's a lot of people who kind of watch and look up to you in terms of, as you say, opening the doors and paving the way for today. If there's any kind of young women watching this who are considering entering the wrestling business, it's a different landscape today. But there are many more opportunities than there were back when you were in the ring. Is there any advice or lessons learned from your travels that you would give?
Yeah, my number one advice is to really just show up as yourself. I remember, when the whole wand thing was created, and I had this idea, and to some people it was so silly and like, how the heck is this going to get over? But without a shadow of a doubt, I believed it was going to get over. And because I just believed in that, it did exactly that. And when we believe in ourselves, there's an energy, an air of confidence and beauty that just really come out. And that's what exemplifies you, right? They always say wrestling is kind of who you are exemplified. And people are like, well, how do I get to the exemplified version? And it's really just stepping into the confidence, right? It's not arrogance, it's just confidence of believing that it's okay if you fail. It's okay if you mess up. And you're just going to keep falling forward and trying things out. And so just being who you are, I think, is what really gets people over.
Couldn't say it better myself. Well, look, the floor is yours. Is there anyone that you would like to thank or dedicate your awards to today?
Oh, this is so fun. Yes, I would like to thank, wow, I didn't think about this in advance. So, we talked about Torrie Wilson and Victoria, and, they initially took me under their wing, and I would not be here or who I am today without them. Definitely Lillian Garcia. She is a sister for life, and she's one of those people that has supported me from the beginning, and now we're super connected. I'd also thank Trish Stratus and Melina. These were incredible wrestlers that one really challenged me and one was really there to help me out. And so without them and them paving the way in that era of what wrestling was, even Lita, this was somebody who was an opposite character of me, but without that, there can't be me. Definitely Beth Phoenix. She's the one who, because of her, is when I really learned the philosophy of the match and learning what I was good at. I always wanted to be that high flyer and this lavish part, but I was really good at having the crap beat out of me. And but it's what got her over and got me over at the same time. And just to all the fans, the fans that for decades now have supported me and honored me so that I can be here, to actually be here with you today. And you even have the thought of inducting me into this Hall of Fame. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. So that's it.
Well, I think without any forewarning or planning, that was expertly done.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, look, on a final note of thanks, so I just have to say thank you to everyone who's joined this very special Hall of Fame edition today. Thank you to my producer, Jeff Easton from Tall Oak Productions. If the Hall of Fame had a wing for creatives, Jeff would be my very first inductee. But thank you most of all to one and only Candice Michelle, the latest inductee into the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame class of 2025.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So that's a wrap for today. Join us again on Wrestling Life Scene for more real talk from real talent. Until then, please be good to each other. Pay it forward if you can. This has been Wrestling Life with Ben Veal and Candice Michelle. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.